Today I want to talk about the trigger that I've been using for the last roughly 6 months, and that is the Flavio VELOCE HD. So let's take a look at it. About 8 or 9 months ago, Fabio, who is Flavio's son, reached out to me because I've used Flavio's for a long time. And he said, hey, I'm making a new trigger. I know it's not necessarily an F-class trigger, but I think it has a real application in the competition world and in the hunting world. Would you like to take a look at it? And I said, sure. Keep in mind, I don't hunt. And so we kept in contact. And about 6 months ago, he sent me the trigger. So let me tell you what is different about this compared to their probably most well-known trigger, which is the Whisper 2.1. The Whisper 2.1 is a bench rest trigger. It is specifically designed for bench rest or F-class competition. It goes from about 0.7, 7/10 of an ounce to just about 2 ounces. And the reason I say about is because, believe it or not, the way your action is set up has an impact on those weights, so it can vary by action. But that's roughly the trigger weights. They are also a ball bearing action, incredibly smooth, incredibly reliable. A lot of people really love them, including myself. Eric Cortina shoots one. So they're really great triggers. But they do limit because of the fact that they only go up to about 2 ounces. So what he did is he set out to make a trigger that would be great for like PRS crowd, possibly F-class and bench rest, depending on how you like your gun setup, and definitely into the hunting world. There are no ball bearings in it. It is a traditional sear engagement, but the way it's designed and the geometry inside of it is definitely a little bit different. It has probably the crispest break I've seen on any of his triggers so far. And it also has a interchangeable trigger shoe. Now in the US here, Bruno's is going to be the exclusive importer of the Flavios. I believe their offering is a standard 700 with the safety on it and the bolt release. The safety can be fairly easily removed for people that don't need one like myself. That's what I've chosen to do on mine. And they come with the standard curved trigger. Now there are other triggers that Flavio has in availability, which would be a flat trigger and then kind of a combo trigger that has a little bit of a hook and some flat sides to it. You'd have to look about special ordering those if that was something you were interested in. But keep in mind, the standard trigger is going to be a traditional, kind of a pro curved style where it's not super hooked, but it's definitely a curved trigger. And there's nothing wrong with that, but when I ordered it, I did go ahead and get the couple extra trigger shoes, and I've been really happy with the flat one, although I'm probably going to test out this little hooked one here soon because I'm curious about it. Something else that sets this trigger apart is the fact that you can move the trigger from a straight 90-degree position to a backwards position to a forwards position. So there's basically a shift, kind of a 3-point shift that the trigger itself can do. And that's great because, people have a different preference on how they like to pull their trigger. And, nothing wrong with that. I like mine pretty much straight up and down. One of the other things about how this trigger is designed, it is designed to be an absolute workhorse in just really nasty conditions. Now, like any trigger, if it's subjected to really nasty conditions, you are probably going to want to follow the manufacturer's recommendation in terms of cleaning. But I will just tell you that having had this for 6 months, I've shot it in windy Arizona, sandy, dusty conditions. I've taken it to Texas where it's hot, humid. I've gone to Tennessee where, again, it's a little bit humid, dry, wet conditions. We got rained on a little bit one day. It's actually been in the rain, so it's gotten wet, and I haven't touched it in terms of cleaning it. It has been absolutely foolproof. So this is actually out of my number 2 gun. I pulled it out for the video, but it has been in my second gun that I've been using. Number 1 and number 2 don't indicate better and worse. It's just a number 1 and a number 2 gun. But anyway, so it came out of that just to show you what it looks like. I'm going to show you functionally how it breaks with this trigger gauge that I've got, and I'll show you that in a second here. But suffice to say, the fact that this lets you go from about 4.5 ounces, I think is what he states. You can actually get it a little lower on custom actions because of how the sear engagements work, to roughly 20 ounces, makes it great for a hunting gun. Somewhere in between is probably where a PRS shooter is going to want it, but huge flexibility with it, especially for a top-end trigger. Now, no doubt, top-end trigger comes with a top-end price. It is going to run in the same price ranges as your high-end Bix and Andys and some of your other high-end triggers that are out there. But, if this is what you're looking for, that's kind of the price you're going to be paying for one. One thing I do like is for people who pull their triggers when they travel, which I've done in the past, it does come with a very nice travel case that you can throw your trigger in and feel confident that it's not going to get buggered up in a suitcase or in a rifle case if that's what you're doing. So let's take a look at how the trigger actually operates, and I'm going to show you with my trigger gauge. Now, just to give you a heads up of how this trigger gauge works, it actually has you pull on the front as if you were pulling the trigger. So you're going to see me operate it this way. You don't pull on the unit like this. And I found this to be very accurate. I'm currently running this somewhere in the mid 4 ounce range. Both of my guns are really close. But roughly it should be in the low to mid 4s. There's a chance it's just a hair higher. But that's roughly where I'm liking it to shoot right now. And honestly, when you're kind of in that range, both guns are going to feel the same anyway. So I do my best to marry them up, but that's just the way it goes. So let's take a look at what that looks like on the gun. I'll show you what the trigger breaks like. Hopefully that gives you a feel for it. So here you can see what it looks like installed with my trigger shoe. So that's the, like I said, that's the flat one right there. And then you can see within the trigger guard what it looks like. And then I'll just show you best I can looking up under it. You can see what is available there. Now I'll point out afterwards, I'll kind of show you the sear engagements and the adjustment on it when we're done here. But this is set where I like it. I have my trigger set where I like it. But again, keep in mind, like I said, that trigger shoe can be angled a little bit back, a little bit forward, so that you can get it exactly where you want it. So let me go ahead and throw a bolt in, and then we're going to pull the trigger a couple times. All right, so let's grab a bolt. And I have fully checked the firearm. It is completely empty, and it is good to go. It has ECI chamber in it, so we know that it is good. I'll pull that out simply when we need to do the test. But what we're going to do here, like I said, we're going to turn this on. I've already got it set for ounces, but you can do, with this particular one, you can do a couple different forms of measurement. So I've got my ECI in. I know that there is nothing in the chamber. Let's go ahead and cock this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the trigger, and from the left side, I'm going to pull it back. So that was 4.8. And then what I'm going to do is I hit enter on the bottom here. And I'm going to scoot my gun back just a hair because, yeah, I'll try to get to it a little better here. Okay, so there we go. And we're going to do this again. .9. That was just at 5.1. So it's just a little heavier than I thought I had it at. Been a while since I've looked at it. 4.6. You can see it's really consistent on where it breaks, especially considering I'm using this thing. 4.9. So anyway, you get the idea. You know, that's plenty consistent for what I'm looking to do. And again, just really nice, crisp break. I really like it. All right, let's go back to the worktop, show you a couple things before we're done. So here we have in recap, taking a look at the trigger. Now, if I needed to make an adjustment to it, as you're looking at the trigger, the screw that is most pronounced, that is closest to the trigger shoe, that's going to be the one that lets you set your force. So you can adjust it in and out accordingly. And, you know, if you have some kind of a scale, you can test it, or, you know, you could test it by feel if that's something you want to do. Whatever range you reach with it is going to be safe. You just want to be careful that you don't unscrew this so much that there's no thread left, because you can reach a point where you don't feel it clicking. You want to be at least a couple clicks in so that there's positive engagement on that. And then this other hole, there's kind of a deeper recessed piece in there, and you can see this goes in there, and that's going to be for your sear engagement. So that lets you really time it up nicely with your bolt. That's especially important on actions like my Defiance that don't have a trigger hanger. So without a trigger hanger, I can't time my trigger with where the trigger is itself. So it really means I need a trigger that has sear adjustment. It's a problem I've had with some other triggers that don't have sear engagements, where I get my bolt, it skips over the sear, and I have to recock it. It's not necessarily a dangerous thing. It doesn't cock the gun properly, and it can be really frustrating and annoying, especially when you're in the middle of a match. So being able to really get that sear engagement matched up perfectly is really important for me. Again, the shoes swap in or out, and like I said, there's multiple positions that you can put this in depending on what you want it to look like. So, you know, there you go. If you're looking for a high-end trigger, and look, I'm not making any bones about it. This is an expensive trigger. It's not going to be a, you know, an inexpensive purchase, but it is a trigger that is extremely well made, lots of versatility. You could easily throw this in an F-class or a bench rest gun. You could then put it in a PRS gun and then put it in a hunting gun, adjust the weight, trigger pull weights pretty easily, and utilize it across the board. So that's what I really like about it. It's huge versatility compared to just a fixed bench rest trigger that really doesn't give you the ability to put it in something like a PRS or a hunting rig if you really wanted to. So anyway, I hope this helps. I know triggers are always a tough thing to pick out. You can't always find somebody at the range that has one, but I'll tell you what, if you're ever out at my club or you see me, feel free to stop by. I'm happy to let you try this. One other thing that I should note is that Flavio is only one of two triggers that, for instance, Borden, when he times out triggers, he only uses Flavios and one other brand now. So it is, if you know it's good enough for Jim, you know it's got to be a good trigger. So in any event, appreciate everybody watching as always. You have a good one. We'll talk later.